Ding dong, ding dong. With the sound of the doorbell ringing, I put down the vegetables I was washing and quickly ran to open the door. Since the Cold War with James, he has been coming back for dinner for several days in a row, but today is his son's birthday, so he should take the opportunity to come back for dinner. I could wait for my husband James to open the door, but instead, I saw the delivery guy. "Hello, please sign for this." I quickly wiped my hands on my apron and swiftly signed my name. I closed the door and immediately opened the package. To my surprise, there was a bottle of Chanel perfume lying in the box. I couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. It was neither a holiday nor a special occasion, so why did my husband suddenly think of giving me perfume? Could it be that he wants to ease our relationship by giving gifts? Sigh, why waste this money? Actually, as long as he is willing to explain clearly what happened that day, I naturally wouldn't be in a cold war with him. When I picked up the perfume and took a closer look, I realized that it was actually men's perfume. It seems I was being overly sentimental. This was clearly something James bought for himself. I only felt a fleeting joy at that moment, but I still properly stored it away in the cabinet and turned to continue cooking. But by 6:30, I had laid out a table full of dishes, yet James still had not come home. If it were any other day, it would be fine, but today is my son's birthday. Is he really not coming back to spend time with him? So I ignored the fact that we were still in a cold war and took the initiative to call him. "James, today is Lucas's birthday. Have you forgotten?" He was silent for a while before apologetically saying on the other end, "Tell your son that I have important work to handle tonight, and I really can't make it back to celebrate his birthday. I will make it up to him with a gift later." It seems he really forgot. Although James is usually a bit indifferent towards me, he has always been very attentive to our son. Could it be that just because he had some conflicts with me recently, he is taking it out on our son? Or is there really some work that must be dealt with today? "James, but if you don't come back, Lucas will be very disappointed. Our adult matters shouldn't affect the children." But James didn't even let me finish my sentence before hanging up the phone. His attitude made me feel as if I had a lump in my chest, unable to breathe it out yet unable to swallow it down. I see that there is work to be done, but it's clearly just his excuse. He is obviously still sulking over what happened a few days ago. Could it be that I really misunderstood him that day? But why couldn't he just speak up and explain things clearly to me? Instead, he chose to leave in silence, slamming the door. Am I not allowed to ask a single question when I see a woman's lipstick mark on my husband's shirt? If I really misunderstood him, I am also willing to apologize to him. But him avoiding me like this and not coming home, leaving me to struggle alone in the whirlpool of doubt, is really driving me crazy. I even started to think that it would be better if he just admitted to cheating rather than avoiding facing me like this. And he doesn't know when it started, but he has already gotten used to hanging up on my calls before I finish speaking. The feeling of being disrespected surged in my heart once again at this moment. Before I could suppress the bitterness in my heart, my son's cries suddenly came from the room. "Mom. Woo-woo." I immediately put down my phone and ran into his room, only to see him sprawled over the desk, his hands tightly clutching his stomach, and an unusual flush on his face. "Lucas, where do you feel uncomfortable?" I asked while touching my son's forehead, discovering that his temperature was frighteningly high. "Lucas, you have a fever. Mommy will take you to the hospital right away, don't be afraid." I hurriedly dressed Lucas and rushed out the door while holding him. In the past 2 days, Jing City has experienced 3 heavy snowfalls, and now it's rush hour. I have been standing by the roadside for a long time holding Lucas, yet I still can't get a taxi. I had no choice but to call James. I wanted him to come back immediately to take our son to the hospital. When the call was connected, a young woman's charming voice came through. "Sister-in-law, James has gone to the bathroom. Why don't you call back later?" At this moment, I only felt a buzzing sound in my head. I recognized this woman's voice. It was clearly Isabel, the new assistant at their company. She was also the one most likely to have left that lipstick mark on my husband's shirt. But now is not the time for me to pursue these matters. Looking down at my son's flushed face from the fever, I had no choice but to call the emergency services. Even if the ambulance is fast, it will take at least 10 minutes to arrive, and at this moment, my bladder feels like it's about to burst, painfully swollen. Since giving birth to my son 7 years ago, I often can't hold my urine. Sometimes, when I laugh or sneeze, I even involuntarily leak urine. Now I hold Lucas, feeling a subtle heaviness in my lower abdomen. Just as I was pondering what to do, a warm current slowly flowed over my thigh, then spread down my pant leg and into my snow boots. At this moment, a cold wind blew, and the wet pants clung to my legs, making me shiver. I only felt a blur before my eyes, as if tears were sliding down my cheeks, cutting into my face with pain. But I can't reach out to wipe away my tears, because my son has already fainted in my arms from the fever. Oh God, how did I get myself into such a miserable situation? Beep beep, beep beep. Fortunately, at that moment, the sound of the ambulance grew closer, bringing me a glimmer of comfort and strength. 10 minutes later, we arrived at the nearest hospital. After the examination, the doctor informed me, the child has acute appendicitis and needs surgery immediately, otherwise, there could be serious danger. Parents, please sign here right away. I could only tremble as I signed my name, then watched the medical staff rush Lucas into the operating room. Lucas will be fine, Lucas will definitely be fine. Oh God, I beg you, please ensure his safety. I looked at the lights in the operating room, constantly praying softly, wishing that all the gods and Buddhas in the sky could hear me. At that moment, my phone rang. But I didn't want to pay attention to it, my heart was completely focused on Lucas, and I didn't want to care about anything else. More than an hour later, the operating room door finally opened. I immediately went up to ask about my son's condition. The doctor told me, the child's surgery was very successful, and after a few days of observation in the hospital, they can be discharged. At that moment, my anxious heart finally found its footing. Just then, my phone rang again. I glanced at it, it was James calling. Thinking of having him bring a few changes of clothes for Lucas to the hospital, I tapped to answer. Before I could even say a word, James angrily yelled at me, "Lily, do you even have a brain? You forgot to turn off the heating when you went out. At this rate, you're not far from dementia. Tell me, where on earth did you take Lucas at this late hour? Hurry up and get back here." As he continued to roar in anger, I gradually pieced together the reason for his outburst. It turns out that in my panic tonight, I forgot to turn off the heating in Lucas's room, which led to the fire in the house. The neighbor across the hall smelled the smoke coming from my house and immediately called my phone, but no one answered. In a panic, she had no choice but to contact the property management, which is how she managed to reach James, preventing a disaster. "Lily, you've gone mute. Why aren't you saying anything? Where on earth did you take our son? Why didn't you answer the phone before? I told you I have important work to handle tonight. Are you deliberately trying to make things difficult for me?" James did not receive my response, and his voice grew increasingly louder, as if I were truly some heinous criminal. And I really wanted to question him, whether he was so angry because I, in a moment of panic, forgot to turn off the power? Or was it because this sudden incident interrupted his dinner plans with Isabel? Looking at my son, who has not yet awakened on the hospital bed, I choose to temporarily rein in my emotions and respond to him. "James, Lucas and I are at the Central Hospital. He suddenly developed acute appendicitis and has just come out of the operating room." Let me finish. James on the other end of the phone fell silent, and after a long pause, he finally asked, "How could you be a mother like this? Everything was fine, how could Lucas suddenly get appendicitis? Is it because of you?" But this time I didn't wait for him to speak, I just hung up the phone. Because I knew he wanted to say something again. Since Lucas was born, whenever he has a headache or a fever, James always comes to question me, "How can you be a mother? Everything was fine, and now our son is throwing up. Did you feed him too much? How can you be a mother? Everything was fine, and now our son has a cold. Did you dress him too lightly? How can you be a mother?" Everything was fine, and now our son has diarrhea. Did you give him some dirty snacks? I was questioned by him time and again, and as the frequency increased, I began to doubt whether I was really as terrible a mother as he claimed. One night, Lucas suddenly said to me, "I still prefer Dad over Mom." I just thought the child was young and didn't understand, and I smiled and asked him, why? He answered me in a childish voice, "Because Dad works hard to earn money to buy me toys, and Mom just enjoys her life at home every day, doing nothing." At that time, I realized that in the child's heart, my staying at home was just enjoying a life of ease. But the fact is, in these 10 years, I have never thought about the so-called peace of mind for half a day. At first, because my family was far away, 1,000 miles away, and there were 2 twin younger brothers in high school that needed taking care of, my mom simply couldn't come over to help me with the baby. James's father passed away early, and his mother remarried and went abroad when he was very young, so he couldn't rely on her either. This is what made the responsibility of taking care of the child fall entirely on me. To save money, we didn't hire a nanny, I did everything myself. During the month of confinement, I fell ill with a host of ailments, and even incontinence seemed mild in comparison. What tormented me more was the tenosynovitis, which often caused me to be unable to sleep all night from the pain. What I got in return was James saying, "The clothes are washed in the washing machine, the rice is cooked in the rice cooker, just hold the baby, how did you get tenosynovitis?" The first time I heard him say that, I cried out of grievance, saying he didn't care about others at all, but later, as he said it more often, I gradually became numb to it. And deep down, I felt that he was just born with this kind of personality, it was impossible to change him. Perhaps with fewer expectations, there are fewer disappointments. I no longer hope for his care and concern for me, instead, our days have passed peacefully to the present. Neighbors often say that James looks gentle and refined, with an elegant demeanor, and that he must be very gentle and considerate to his wife. Each time, he just smiles, thinking that marriage is like drinking water, one knows best whether it is warm or cold. No matter how good it looks from the outside, it might already be rotten inside. In the early hours of the morning, James finally arrived at the hospital. However, he was followed by Isabel, who was elegantly made up and stylishly dressed. As soon as she saw me, she took my hand and said, "Sister-in-law, James drank today and it's not convenient for him to drive, so I drove him over. Now that the person has been delivered, you can leave." I raised my eyes to look at her and said coldly. James rushed over, standing in front of the aggrieved Isabel, and said to me, "Lily, why are you being so sarcastic? Isabel kindly gave this to me, is that wrong?" Seeing him defend Isabel like this, my heart felt as if 100 ants were gnawing at my flesh, stirring up a fine, dense pain. But on the surface, I just tiredly said to him, "James, this is a hospital. If you want to argue, let's pick another place to do it another day." Saying this, I turned my gaze to my son on the sickbed, not looking at them even once. Isabel suddenly began to sob softly, as if she were caught in a fit of drama. "Sister-in-law, actually I came today to explain to you about the lipstick mark on James's shirt." Hearing this, I couldn't help but look up at her. "As expected, that lipstick mark really is yours." She hurriedly explained while crying, "That day I was with James receiving clients and had a bit to drink. In the elevator, I lost my balance and accidentally brushed against James's clothes." My gaze kept wandering between the two of them, trying to catch a hint of something. But their expressions were sincere and open, showing no signs of flaw. This made me feel a bit guilty, thinking that I shouldn't doubt that there was anything between them. So, I took the initiative to soften my tone and said to Isabel, "If there's a misunderstanding, let's clear it up. Thank you for specially bringing old Goo to my house so late tonight, but it's getting late now. You should head back early, or your family might worry." Isabel finally stopped her tears after hearing what I said and nodded goodbye to us. Until only the three of us were left in the ward, I finally asked James, "Why didn't you say anything before? You'd rather let me misunderstand all this time. Do you know I've been sleepless every night these past few days because of this?" James still does not feel he is in the wrong at all. Instead, he looks at me with a face full of disappointment and says, "Lily, after so many years of marriage, do you really have no basic trust in me? Do you really think of me, James, as that kind of man who is fickle and unfaithful to our marriage? This not only insults me, but also insults yourself. Lily, do you really have so little confidence in yourself?" James's series of rhetorical questions left me momentarily speechless. Is that so? Is it really as he said? Is it a lack of self-confidence that makes one become so suspicious? I started to regret a bit, feeling that I shouldn't have doubted him like that before. Honey, I was wrong, I shouldn't have misunderstood you like that. Saying this, I reached out to tug at James's trench coat sleeve, hoping he wouldn't be angry with me anymore. James let out a long sigh, then embraced me and said, "Lily, you have to believe in my character, I could never do something like cheat." Hearing him say this, I was so moved that tears filled my eyes. I immediately wrapped my arms tightly around his waist and said, "Honey, I believe you. This time it was really my fault. I will never be so suspicious again." He nodded in satisfaction, rarely showing affection as he patted the top of my head. "That's how it should be. Trust is very important between husband and wife." In that moment, I felt a wave of shame for misunderstanding him and Isabel. Perhaps it was really because I had been a housewife for too long, lacking a sense of security? Just as I was reflecting on my own issues, James suddenly pushed me away. "Lily, why do you smell like urine?" In an instant, I felt a wave of heat on my face. How am I supposed to tell him that I wet my pants? Even though he is the closest person to me, I still can't bring myself to say it all. Can only blush and say, "I don't know." Fortunately, he did not continue to ask further. A week later, Lucas was successfully discharged from the hospital. Our family returned to our usual rhythm of life. I get up at 6 every day, making the bacon and eggs that my son likes, while also preparing the lean meat porridge and rice rolls that my husband enjoys. After my husband finishes breakfast, I will help him tie his tie and send him out. Then, send the son to the subway station, and then go to the market to buy groceries. After finishing the grocery shopping, I hurried back home to clean and do the laundry. That day, I was at home as usual, ironing my husband's shirt while watching a boring TV drama. Suddenly I thought, now that my son is in elementary school, shouldn't I go out and find a job? Otherwise, staying at home every day, I'm going to be completely out of touch with society. That night, when James came home from work, I brought up my idea of wanting to go out to work during dinner. Who would have thought? He put down his chopsticks and said to me seriously, "Lily, do you know how severe the current job market is? Do you have any idea how many fresh graduates from universities can't find jobs each year? Even graduates from prestigious 985 universities like Isabel have to rely on connections to get into our company, and they still have to go through written tests and interviews, overcoming numerous obstacles. And you, a middle-aged woman who graduated from a second-tier university, have absolutely no advantage when applying for jobs. You've been out of the workforce for so many years, you have no idea how competitive the job market is now, how much backstabbing and deceit there is. I think it would be better for you to stay at home and take good care of your son. If you really feel bored, we can even consider having a second child. Our colleague Zhang just had a daughter last month, and she's so adorable." However, I could no longer take in what he said afterwards. Yes, I know I graduated from a second-tier university. I know I am already 40 years old. Once, I was also his most capable assistant at work, James, and an outstanding employee who received multiple praises from the leadership in the company. If it weren't for Lucas being born prematurely and the lack of elderly support at home, how could I have possibly resigned to stay home and take care of the baby? I also remember that when I wanted to hire a nanny, James repeatedly stopped me, saying that outsiders are unreliable, and some nannies even secretly give children sleeping pills. I was indeed a bit worried after hearing that, caught in hesitation, when James said, "Lily, your work ability is so strong that even if you stay at home to raise children for a few years, you will still be in high demand when you come back to look for a job." But now he seems to have completely forgotten the words he once said. In his eyes, I am just a housewife who has been completely eliminated by society. Even if I say I am willing to start from scratch, he believes that there is absolutely no way anyone would hire me. But am I really as terrible as he says? At that moment, my son's voice interrupted my thoughts. Mom, the sweet and sour ribs you made today are too sour, I don't like them. Next time, remember not to put so much vinegar, they're really too hard to eat. I gently touched his head and coaxed softly, I'm sorry, Lucas, I'll be more careful next time. Mom, you stay at home every day, yet you can't even do something as simple as cooking. You're really quite foolish. My son's words stunned me for a moment, and then I couldn't help but frown and ask, Lucas, didn't your kindergarten teacher teach you to be a polite good child? The son lowered his head to eat, not answering my question. I felt that I couldn't just let it pass lightly, so I said to him, the way you just spoke to your mother is not the behavior of a good child. The son still did not realize his mistake, looking up with his little face and speaking to me in a tone of a little adult, but what I said is the truth. Mom, you really do stay at home every day enjoying life, and besides doing laundry and cooking, you don't have to do anything else every day. At this moment, I only felt a chill in my heart. It turns out that in my son's eyes, I am so utterly worthless. Seeing the sadness on my face, James immediately frowned and said to his son, Lucas, how can you speak to your mother like that? Even though your mother stays at home every day and doesn't earn money, as her son, you cannot say that to her. He seems to be educating his son, but why do his words sound so harsh? It's as if he's saying, everything I do at home, all the housework, is worthless. I began to feel that the reason my son viewed me this way was definitely related to James. After all, I didn't know when it started, but James always seemed to enjoy belittling me in front of my son, whether intentionally or not. He also chose to ignore the contributions I made to this family. But I clearly work every day for this family, busy as a spinning top. How did it turn into me enjoying a life of ease at home in his mouth? The floor at home won't become spotless on its own. Dirty clothes won't run to the washing machine by themselves. The trash in the bin certainly won't disappear on its own. In the eyes of the father and son, all these tedious household chores seem to be completely invisible. Thinking of this, I could no longer suppress the grievance and anger in my heart, and I began to put on a serious face to reason with my son. Lucas, have you ever thought that your dirty clothes won't clean themselves, your toys won't put themselves back in the storage box, and your leather shoes won't keep shining like new on their own? My son, upon my question, blinked his grape-like big eyes at me and began to think seriously. At this moment, James jumped out again to play the good guy. Lily, as a mother, why are you being so serious with your own child? I was directly amused by James's words. For the first time in front of my son, I directly retorted, am I being serious? I'm clearly educating my son. James immediately frowned and said to me, how old is Lucas this year? Can he understand what you're saying? In 2 years, when he becomes more sensible, he will naturally understand. Really? Why do I feel that by then, my son's thoughts will be even more off track? But just as I was about to retort to James, I heard him turn to our son and say, Lucas, don't mind your mom, she might be going through menopause lately. Just eat your meal, and after you're done, Dad will watch Ultraman with you. The son immediately beamed with joy, clapping his hands and cheering, long live Dad. Ha, it's like this again. Every time I want to educate the child, James jumps out to play the good guy and smooth things over. As a result, in our son's mind, I have become the nagging bad mom. And on ordinary days, the usually indifferent James became the best dad in the child's heart. At this moment, I truly feel sad for myself. Clearly, I am the one who has devoted more time and energy for my son. Yet in the end, my son doesn't appreciate my efforts at all. Just as I was reflecting on where I went wrong in my education of my son, James suddenly said to me, by the way, next Friday, our company is organizing an outing to a countryside farm, and they say we can bring family. Why don't you bring Lucas and come with me? I replied sullenly, ultimately choosing to give up on lecturing my son, and quietly finished my dinner. I could lie in bed at night, but I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Over the years, for the sake of my son and this family, I have stagnated and stopped growing. But in the end, my efforts are worth nothing in the hearts of my family. Since that's the case, why should I continue to sacrifice myself and be a free nanny at home? Anyway, the child is already in elementary school, so I can actually let go completely. Tomorrow morning, I will make a resume and send it to dozens of companies. I don't believe I can't find a suitable job. Ideals can be plump, but reality is skeletal. The next day, I sent out nearly 30 resumes online, but they all sank like stones into the sea without a reply. Perhaps, as James said, it is as difficult for a stay-at-home mom like me, who has been out of the workforce for many years, to find a job as it is to reach the sky. Just when I was about to resign myself to my fate, I saw a recruitment post from my former university senior, Fiona, on Facebook, urgently hiring several sales positions, salary $3,200, $5,000 after becoming permanent. This senior sister Fiona was the president of our university student council and was very capable. After graduating from university, she chose to study abroad. I heard that she returned to the country last year and started her own business, opening a company. After thinking about it, I decided to reach out to her. I didn't expect that as soon as she heard it was me, she readily let me come for an interview on Friday. That night, I told James the good news. I thought he would be happy for me, but to my surprise, he said, "Aren't you going to participate in the event our company is organizing on Friday?" I said frankly, there will be more opportunities after the event, but there aren't many chances for interviews. James scoffed and said, "Even if you go, the chances are you won't get to meet him, so why bother making the trip? It's better to stay at home and continue being your full-time housewife." His tone was laced with undisguised contempt, making me feel as if I had a lump in my throat. So I retorted sarcastically, "Only those who have a driver when they go out and a maid when they come home can be considered full-time wives. After marrying you, I'll be doing housework every day like a maid, that's called a housewife." After speaking, I couldn't help but glance at James's reaction. Sure enough, the next moment, his face turned red and white in turns. But he still insisted stubbornly, "How many women have dreamed of living a life like yours now, Lily? Don't be ungrateful." I sneered, "Oh really? Which foolish woman would be willing to be a free nanny? How come I haven't noticed that?" James was provoked by me and blurted out, "Of course there is. Isabel is very willing to stay at home and support her husband and raise children, it's just that she hasn't had your luck, she hasn't met a man like me who is worth entrusting her life to." As soon as he finished speaking, he realized that he seemed to have said the wrong thing, and hurriedly added, "Oh, what I mean is that many women envy your current life, you should be grateful." I was too lazy to continue arguing with him, so I turned off the light and got ready to sleep. But my sixth sense subtly tells me that the relationship between James and Isabel is not as simple as that of colleagues. Otherwise, how would he know that Isabel's life ideal is to be a good wife and mother? They must usually not only talk about work together but also chat about everything under the sun and discuss life. That's why James just blurted out those words. But James just said not long ago that I should believe him, that he and Isabel are completely innocent. What should I do? Should I trust him or my sixth sense? After a few days of feeling unsettled, I still couldn't sort out my thoughts. Just like that, in the blink of an eye, it was Friday, the day of the interview. I got up early on purpose, put on my long-neglected professional attire, applied a bit of light makeup, and was ready to head out to Fiona's company. However, unexpectedly, a sarcastic voice from behind came from James. "Sales is ultimately just a job of talking, with your eloquence, hee." I know he just wants to undermine my enthusiasm, wishing I would immediately back out and say I'm not going to the interview, and then continue to stay at home, being his willing and unpaid maid. But I won't fall for his trick. I put on my high heels and stepped out the door. I didn't expect him to rush out the door and shout at me, "Have you ever thought about how others would see me if you became a salesperson? I'm still the vice president of a big company, where am I supposed to put my face? Besides, what will happen to Lucas if you go to work? I finally stopped, turned around, and smiled at him, saying, "Our son is already in elementary school. Do I really need to chase after him every day to feed him?" James was momentarily speechless after I choked him. But soon, he put on the airs of a head of the household and shouted at me, "Zhao Lily, you are my wife, so you have to listen to me. I don't agree with you going to work, so you can't go." Perhaps he thinks that if he gets angry, I will immediately compromise like before. But this time I am going to disappoint him. I looked straight at him and said, "The Qing dynasty has fallen, hasn't anyone informed you?" After saying that, I turned around and strode forward. James shouted behind me in anger, "Lily, come back here." I quickened my pace, ignoring his calls. After a lot of effort to change buses, I finally arrived at Fiona's company. After understanding, Fiona's company mainly develops skincare products that can be used by pregnant women. She believes that the products used by women during this period need to be safer and gentler in terms of ingredients. The company has invested in the research and development of naturally derived skincare products. Now that the products have been approved for market launch, there is an urgent need to open up sales channels. I felt that this job was very suitable for me after hearing about it. Although I had only worked as James's secretary and had no sales experience, at the end of the day, both jobs essentially test one's ability to communicate with others. I am quite confident about this aspect of myself. After all, even James, who is so picky, expressed satisfaction with my workability. So, I earnestly asked Fiona if she could give me a chance to try it out. Fiona is also very righteous and agreed immediately. After the successful interview, I didn't rush home but went to eat fried chicken by myself. Then I went to a somewhat famous hair salon and had my dry, waist-length hair cut into a neat bob. I don't know why, but looking at myself in the mirror, I feel a sense of rebirth. It seems that what I've cut off is not just my hair, but also the heaviness of the past. After paying, I went to watch a movie alone with my new hairstyle, and then I went to eat my favorite spicy hot pot. This made me feel a long-lost sense of relaxation and freedom. In these 10 years, I have been a wife, a mother, but I have no longer been myself. I can't help but wonder, in front of others, I have an ambitious husband, a smart son, everything seems perfect, but why do I feel increasingly unhappy? What went wrong in the end? I can't figure it out. After a brief escape, I returned home before 10 o'clock. To my surprise, when I opened the door, I saw James lying on the sofa, drunk. He was haphazardly loosening his tie with one hand while tightly holding onto Isabel's hand with the other. "What are you doing?" Isabel was the first to react, immediately putting some distance between herself and James. "Sister-in-law, James has had too much to drink today and can't drive himself, so I brought him back." As soon as Isabel finished speaking, James mumbled indistinctly, "Isabel. I'm really fed up with that yellow-faced woman at home, she always smells like urine, unlike you, every inch of your skin is fragrant. I love it the most." Isabel heard James's confession, and a hint of pride clearly flashed in her eyes, but she put on a harmless facade and said, "Sister-in-law, James and I have always been innocent, I don't know why he would suddenly say something like this." I looked at her and scoffed, saying, "You are so pure and innocent, pure enough that he knows every inch of your skin is fragrant?" Isabel was instantly flushed by what I said. "Sister-in-law, how can you take James's drunken words seriously? I know about catching someone in the act, catching them red-handed. Now, no matter how much I say, she won't admit it, so I can't be bothered to waste my breath on her anymore. It's not true." Isabel then smiled again. "That's good. Sister-in-law, I'll be leaving now." It was only when the sound of the door closing echoed that I slowly exhaled a breath of stale air. But looking at James, who was lying on the sofa and snoring, I told myself, I don't want a husband like this. After making an effort to calm my emotions, I went straight to my son's room. Seeing my son sleeping soundly under the covers, I finally felt at ease. But when I bent down, just about to kiss his little face, I heard him mumbling, "Aunt Isabel is so beautiful. It would be great if you could be my mom." In an instant, I felt my blood flow backward. It turned out that while I was unaware, the husband and son I loved with all my heart, were both preoccupied with another woman. Well, since it's like this, I will fulfill your wishes. The next day, unexpectedly, I didn't wake them up but left early on my own to go to work at the store. Just after I had changed into my uniform, I heard my phone ring. I looked, and it was James calling. What's wrong? I picked up the phone and asked in a light tone. Lily, why didn't you wake me up today? Do you know I just woke up now? I'm definitely going to be late for work. Also, Lucas said his school is going to rehearse for the choir performance, but he doesn't know where his white sneakers went. James's tone was the same as usual, seemingly completely unaware of what he said in front of me last night about liking Isabel. How could you be a mother? How can you have no sense of responsibility at all? He still wanted to continue complaining, but I interrupted him directly, saying, James, the child is not just mine. If you can't find something, just look for it a few more times. I'm done talking, I have to go to work. Lily. You. James was anxiously trying to say something on the other end, but I couldn't be bothered to listen any longer and simply chose to hang up the phone. All morning, I devoted myself to my work without distraction, learning many sales techniques from the store manager hired from a big company by Fiona, and I truly benefited greatly. It wasn't until lunchtime that I had the time to take out my phone and take a look. 57 missed calls from James. That's more than all the calls he made to me in the past year. Just as I was wondering what could have happened to make him contact me so frantically, his call came through again. Lily, I left an important document at home. Please bring it to me quickly, I'm currently at the Towley Village Resort. I replied coldly while eating, I have to work this afternoon, so I don't have time to see you off. James finally couldn't bear it any longer and shouted in anger, what kind of job do you have? It's only a few bucks a month. Go quit today, and I'll continue to support you when you come back. His voice was so loud that I had to immediately hold my phone away from my ear, fearing that my eardrum might get damaged. James, seeing that there was still no response, began to panic. Lily, did you hear me or not? You have to bring me the documents before 4 o'clock. I remained very calm, threw out a line, no time, and directly turned off my phone, continuing to eat. I was already planning to divorce him, yet he still thinks about these useless words with me. What he means by I'll support you is that he gives me 2,000 yuan a month for household expenses. This 2,000 also includes the entire family's food expenses, property fees, water fees, electricity fees, and gas fees. Every month, she even has to check my accounts, often arguing with me until our faces turn red over 50 cents. Many times, when my son wants to buy a toy, I still use my savings from before marriage to buy it for him, otherwise, I would have to listen to James nagging for half a day. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. I've had enough of this kind of life. Divorce. I must divorce him. At 7 o'clock in the evening, I returned home, ready to officially propose a divorce to James. As soon as I opened the door, I saw him cooking in the kitchen. This was truly a surprise. After 10 years of marriage, it was the first time he had cooked at home. Lily, you're back. Quickly wash your hands, and we can eat soon. James seemed to have suddenly changed his demeanor, now acting like a good husband, urging me to wash my hands and eat. I don't want to explore the reasons for his change. I directly said to him, James, let's get a divorce. He was clearly taken aback, nearly spilling the soup he was holding. Divorce. Why do you want to divorce me? Is it just because of the few drunken words I said yesterday? It seems that Isabel told him, last night when he was drunk, he said a lot of drunken truths in front of me. No wonder he suddenly decided to cook today. He probably wants to mend the fence after the sheep are lost and cover up the chaos. It's a pity, but I'm not falling for that. I looked straight into his eyes and said with a half smile, since you like Isabel, I'll support you both. Isn't that a good thing? James immediately became anxious, walking up to me and saying in a flustered and helpless tone, Lily, don't misunderstand, I only said those ridiculous things because I was drunk for a moment. I shook my head and sneered, nonsense? I think it's all your true feelings. After all, isn't there a saying that people speak the truth after drinking? With every word I spoke, James's face turned a shade paler. Before long, he seemed to think of something again and calmly said, "Lily, do you really want to divorce me? Don't you think about the fact that you're already 40 this year? If you leave me, who else can you find?" I snorted coldly and retorted, "Then you don't need to worry about it." After saying that, I went inside to pack my luggage. James followed behind me, arms crossed, sneering coldly, "If you walk out that door today, it won't be so easy to come back. I advise you not to do it." Seeing that I remained unmoved, not even lifting my head, he softened his voice and explained, "Lily, stop it. I admit I said something I shouldn't have after drinking yesterday, but Isabel and I are truly innocent. It's not as sordid as you think." Just as I was trembling with anger at his evasions, Lucas suddenly rushed over to me and said, "Mom, why don't you and Dad get a divorce? That way, Aunt Isabel can be my new mom. She's not only beautiful, but she always smells nice, and both Dad and I like her more." James did not expect Lucas to say that. In shock, he immediately covered Lucas's mouth and scolded him, "You little kid, what nonsense are you talking about?" Looking at this ridiculous scene, I almost laughed to the point of tears. "Lucas is indeed your own son, they are both ungrateful people." James's face instantly turned pale. "You didn't go to the last event. Isabel accompanied our son the whole time, so he really likes her." I interrupted his explanation and said with a cold smile, "Well, after our divorce, you can put in more effort to try to make Isabel his new mom. But, I just wonder if Isabel will even like you. You are simply unreasonable." James, furious and embarrassed, pointed at me. At that moment, I couldn't be bothered to look at him again, dragging my luggage and leaving this so-called home without looking back. To make it easier for work in the future, I chose to move into the company-provided dormitory for employees. After packing my luggage and making the bed, I immediately sent James the divorce agreement I had drafted. But I didn't expect that after he received it, he would immediately call me and scold me. "Lily, are you crazy? You actually played for real?" I said coldly, "Otherwise? Do you think I'm joking?" He was even angrier and said fiercely on the other end, "Fine, let's get a divorce. Whoever doesn't want a divorce is a grandson." After saying that, he hung up the phone. A month later, James and I successfully obtained our divorce certificate. The house, the car, and Lucas's custody belonged to James. I only received half of the savings, $200,000. James said that this $200,000 was given to me because I gave birth to a son for the Gu family and worked tirelessly to take care of the family for 10 years. I just smiled and looked at him, as if I were looking at a pile of garbage. My colleagues found out about my divorce and all said I was too foolish. I should have gathered evidence of James's infidelity and made him leave with nothing. I shook my head and said, "I know this person well enough. He has the heart of a thief but lacks the courage of one, so he probably won't really cross the line. But I don't want to keep eating this half-cooked rice. I also don't want to waste my precious time on someone who isn't worth it." The store manager patted my shoulder and agreed, saying, "I also divorced because my ex-husband couldn't forget his first love, even though she had passed away 10 years ago. Moreover, emotional infidelity is still infidelity. That's right, sometimes a mental affair can be even more suffocating than a physical one. It's just like how, even though James is by my side, I feel lonelier than when I'm alone. Rather than this, I might as well let him go and pursue what he wants, allowing myself to regain my freedom as well. This is certainly better than being tied together and tormenting each other for a lifetime." But I didn't expect that James thought differently. Less than a year after the divorce, he actually came to find me, saying he regretted divorcing me. That day, after finishing my shift, I was about to go to the night market with my colleagues when I spotted James standing at the door. At that moment, his eyes were bloodshot, and his beard was unkempt. He looked nothing like the spirited person he usually was. I was stunned for a moment, then pretended not to see him and walked straight past him. He caught up and blocked my way. I stared at him and said bluntly, "A good dog doesn't block the way." But he suddenly knelt down on both knees and said to me, "Lily, I was wrong in the past, I made a big mistake. During this time I really miss you, and our son misses you too." Last night, he called out for his mom in his dreams. I didn't expect the invincible him to suddenly come and say he was wrong, leaving me momentarily stunned in place. He seemed to have mustered up his courage and began to confess to me incessantly, "Lily, I really know I was wrong. After divorcing you, I finally understood how important you are to me. That Isabel, after we got married, wouldn't lift a finger around the house. We relied on takeout for every meal, without caring whether it was good for my stomach or the kids. I was blind before, mistaking fish eyes for pearls, not cherishing your contributions to our family. But now I truly know I was wrong. If you are willing to come back, I will immediately ask Isabel for a divorce." He spoke with genuine emotion, but I couldn't be bothered to listen anymore. "James, enough. You keep saying you know you were wrong, but in reality, you're just regretting that you lost a considerate and free caretaker." He heard me say this and began to shake his head desperately, denying, "No, that's not it. Lily, I love you. Please give me a chance, let's start over, I will change everything." I can't help but find it somewhat laughable. In the past, he discarded me like a worn-out shoe, yet now he keeps begging me to turn back. But where does reality allow for so many broken mirrors to be mended? More often, it's just spilled water that cannot be retrieved. James, you don't love me, and you don't love Isabel. The only person you've ever loved is yourself. The reason you're turning back to beg me now is that no one has served you like I have. After saying this, I turned around and wanted to leave. He knelt by my feet, tears streaming down his face, and said, "Lily, I was blind before, mistaking fish eyes for pearls, not cherishing your contributions to our family. But now I truly realize my mistake. If you are willing to come back, I will immediately tell Isabel I want a divorce." If it were before the divorce, he might admit he was wrong, and I might hesitate and waver. But now, even if he kneels before me and breaks his legs, I will not turn back. James, there is no possibility for us anymore. Let go, stop embarrassing yourself like this. As I watched more and more people gathering to enjoy the spectacle, I wished I could find a crack in the ground to hide in. James was tightly holding onto my legs, and I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Just when I didn't know how to escape, Isabel suddenly appeared behind James. And in her hand, she held a fruit knife, glinting with a cold light. With her vicious words, "James, go die," the fruit knife in her hand plunged straight into James's neck. James didn't even have time to react before he fell to the ground, unable to get up. Isabel seemed still not satisfied and stabbed James's lower body a dozen times. While stabbing she cursed, "You bastard, you wasted my youth, go die." I was stunned by Isabel's crazy behavior, frozen in place as if someone had pressed my pressure points. It was only when the police arrived and took away the blood-soaked Isabel and the motionless James lying on the ground that I was able to catch my breath. A few months later, Isabel was sentenced to life imprisonment by law, and she would spend the rest of her life in prison. The story ends.